Hello and welcome. Have you ever attended a professor's office hours and come out of his office thinking, well, that didn't make so much of a difference? I don't feel like I know any more than I knew when I went in. If yes, then this video is for you. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how you can make the most of office hours so you can come out of your professor's office during his office hours feeling like you've actually learned something and made a good use of your time and the professor's time. My name is Tolu, and I'm so glad to have you here. On this channel, I answer questions that you're asking about academia. Back to our question for today. How do I make the most of my professor's office hours? The key is preparation. Most of the points I'll be sharing here are points that have helped me, and you will notice that behind all of them, there's this keyword preparation. The more you prepare for the office hours, the more you are able to get out of it, and that saves you a lot of time. That also saves the professor a lot of time. Besides, it helps you get things done. The first point on my list is to make sure that you review your notes beforehand. So if you're coming to the professor's office hours to ask some question about the course material or what was done in class, say there was something that wasn't clear to you, make sure you actually take time to read through the notes. Don't just come unprepared. Make sure you have your questions handy. You don't want to get to the professor's office and then start thinking of what question it is you wanted to ask, or start finding what page in your notebook you had a problem with. You want to come prepared. Make sure the page is open and ready. Make sure you've also read the material and understood it. You know exactly where the problem is, because it saves you time, it saves the professor time. You're not going to be the only one wanting to see the professor in that space of 1 or 2 hours in a week that he has to see you during his office hours. So you want to make the most of that time, and one way you can do that is by making sure you are prepared. So have all your questions handy. They should be at the top of your head. They should be at the forefront of your mind. You shouldn't have to start thinking what you wanted to ask while you're in front of the professor. My second tip here is to come early, and I have two reasons for this. The first is that it helps you save time, so you don't have to wait in line until everyone who has come in before you has asked their questions. When you come in early, say the professor's office hours is between 1 and 3 p.m. If you come in by 1 p.m., you're able to see the professor early before all your other classmates start coming in. And the second reason for this is that if you ask the professor a question, if you come in early, ask the professor a question, you get enough time to go back, step out of the professor's office, review what he has explained to you, and see if you really get it. If you find that there are still some problem points where you try to self-study it yourself, you can walk back into the professor's office hours and ask him what question it is that has come up as you try to reflect on what he has said. But if you come in to his office hours near the tail end of the period, then you really don't have the opportunity to do that. Then you might have to reschedule or wait until next week. So it's good to come in early for these two reasons. First, you don't have to wait in line, and secondly, you have the opportunity to check back in with the professor if any problems arise with what he explains to you earlier. The third point on my list here is that if you are going to see a professor during his office hours regarding an homework problem, try to make sure that you've done your homework first, that you've actually put in the effort first. Don't just go without actually having read through the problem or attempted it yourself. I know sometimes your homework can be difficult, but when you give yourself the task of trying to understand it first, you're able to value more whatever input the professor will give you than if you just step into his office hours without any preparation on your part, without any thinking or brooding on the question done on your part. When you are really seeking for something and someone answers to you, it's more valuable than when someone just answers to you when you're not seeking for it. If I've been trying to think about the solution to a problem, when someone tells me the solution to that problem, I'm more likely to remember it better than if someone just tells me the solution to a problem when I haven't even spent some time thinking about it first. That's one reason. The second reason is that you might not even have enough time to start the problem from scratch when you are at the professor's office hours. Like I said earlier, many other students are trying to see the professor. It's likely that many other students are trying to see the professor at this time. So you really don't think you would have enough time to go over the question with you from the beginning. if you've tried to think about the question yourself and you've not come up with anything, really, if you have no ideas or you're just stuck, try to talk with a classmate first. You can combine your ideas, and it might not be the best, it might not be the perfect solution, but then it gives you a starting point for when you go on to see the professor during his office hours. So try to make sure you have something, then the professor can help you build on that thing instead of walking into the professor's office hours with nothing at all. I know sometimes it can be difficult because sometimes you truly are stuck. And I would say you don't, depending on the professor and how free it is, you might not have to have something very concrete written down, but at the very least, try to make sure that you've thought well about the problem and you've at least if the professor is really doing his job, you definitely should have an idea of how to approach the homework, even though you don't know how exactly to go about it. But for example, if it's a math problem, you might know which theorems you need to use, which techniques you need to use to solve this problem. You just might not know how to put it all together. But those ideas are the starting point and they are important. So make sure you have all of those ready, and then you can walk into his office hours and say, okay, this problem, I'm thinking we could use the intermediate value theorem for this, or we could use the technique of separation of variables, but I'm not really sure where exactly it comes in. That way you give the professor something to work with. That's the whole point. You want to give the professor something to work with. The next point on my list is to take notes. Well, sometimes it might not be absolutely necessary to take notes depending on what questions you've asked the professor and what you've discussed. But if you've discussed something that you feel like you might easily forget, or if it's something if you had quite a lengthy discussion, then it might be helpful to take notes because you don't want to forget and have to walk back into the professor's office hours the next week and say, well, you did mention some things last week, but I forgot them. Could you go over them again? That doesn't sound very nice. So try as much as possible to take notes if you think it's necessary, so you can free up your mind for other things without having to keep that also in your memory. The final point on my list is to remember to say thank you. Well, yes, it's the professor's job, but even though it's his job, it's still nice to say a thank you. It could be his job and he could decide to do it grumpily such that you are unable to get anything out of it. So still thank the professor for his time and the effort he has put into trying to make sure you understand the concepts of the course clearly. Those are the 5 tips I wanted to share. Put them into practice and watch your office hour visits become more productive. I'll go over them again. The first one is to make sure you're well prepared. If you have questions, make sure they are at the forefront of your mind or you've written them down. Make sure your notes are with you. Make sure you have everything ready so you don't waste your time and the professor's time. The second point is try as much as possible to come in early to the office hours. Thirdly, try to make sure that if it's an homework problem you need help with, you have thought thoroughly about the problem before you come to visit the professor, or you've tried your best to at least start solving the problem, whichever one is possible for you. But make sure that you don't just come to the professor's office hours without putting in some work into actually solving the problem. The fourth point is to take notes, and the final point is to remember to say thank you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Are there any more tips you have for making office hour visits more productive? Please share them in the comment section. I would really love to hear from you, and I'm sure other members of the community would love to hear from you too. Thank you once again and have a lovely day ahead. Bye.